like to call to order the Costa Maria School District School Board meeting for Tuesday, December 14, 2021. Agenda item 1B, reading of the mission statement. The mission of the Costa Maria School District, rich in diversity and committed to excellence, is to create innovative educational experiences which are funded by the taxpayers, supported by the community, delivered by dedicated teachers and administrators, to ensure all students will become responsible, contributing global citizens. Agenda item 1C, advisement. By notice of the President, board members are advised that all votes shall be regarded as roll call votes. The minutes should also note that public notice was given for this meeting in accordance with Act 93 of 1998, Section 1. School board meetings shall proceed in accordance with school board policy. Madam Secretary, call the roll, please.
Rob Fisher.
Here.
Brandon Roan.
Here.
Carvel Brown.
Here.
Holly Charest.
Here.
Andrew Finkbeiner.
Here.
Becky Harlan.
Here.
Mary Ann Harris.
Here.
Amelia Mills.
Here.
Jennifer Schott.
Here.
At this time, we will observe a moment of silence followed by the salute to the flag. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving on to agenda item number 2. To my colleagues, are there any additions, deletions, or modifications to this evening's agenda? Any additions, deletions, or modifications to this evening's agenda? Seeing none, we will move on to agenda item 3A, approval of the minutes. Recommended motion that the Board of School Directors approve the minutes for the December 7, 2021 reorganization meeting, subject to any additions, deletions, modifications, or clarifications. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, call for the vote, please.
Jennifer Schott. Yes. Brandon Roan.
Yes.
Andrew Finkbeiner.
Yes.
Rob Fisher.
Yes.
Becky Harlan.
Yes.
Holly Charest.
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris.
Yes.
Amelia Mills.
Yes.
Carvel Brown.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Agenda item 3B, approval of the minutes. Recommended motion that the Board of School Directors approve the minutes for the December 7, 2021 school board meeting, subject to any additions, deletions, modifications, or clarifications. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second. Get seconded.
Okay. You might have to go up there.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, call for the vote, please.
Becky Harlan.
Yes.
Carvel Brown. Amelia Mills.
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris.
Yes.
Rob Fisher.
Yes.
Andrew Finkbeiner.
Yes.
Jennifer Schott.
Yes.
Brandon Roan.
Yes.
Holly Charest.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Agenda item 4A, public comment on agenda items. The board has requested all persons making comments on agenda items to list their name, address, telephone number, and motion items on the sheet provided. There is a 3-minute time limit per person. The board does not take action or discuss items not appearing on the agenda. The board values public comments and wishes to convey that although board members cannot discuss items that are not on the agenda, they listen carefully and appreciate and value input from the public. Lindsay Hall.
Good evening.
Okay, so I'm Lindsay Hall, and I just want to get down to it. I want to talk about the parents, the taxpayers of this district have had enough. I speak board is ignoring the ruling of the Supreme Court of PA. What makes you, as board members, think you are above the law, much less above the Supreme Court of PA? The last order was overturned, and the judge did not say it should be left up to the individual school district. They said the mandate by the Secretary of Health is unconstitutional, unlawful, and effective immediately. It is over. It is against the law to continue this. We do not require an emergency meeting. We do not require a vote, and we are not waiting for a January board meeting. I'm glad to see that you guys have it on the agenda tonight. You are leaving the board open for lawsuits if you do not make this optional right now. Your time to do the right thing is now. We are the taxpayers. You work for us. I imagine the board is using the health and safety plan as an excuse to keep the children masked, when in all reality, this seems to be more about federal ESSER funding that the board received, which I believe is around $22 million, if I have that correct. You have not only forfeited our children's rights without our knowledge and permission, you are also being paid to keep our children masked. It all boils down to money for the board, which I might add, given the board's financial history, makes you look even worse. You all should be ashamed of yourselves. This is criminal behavior. Also, in case you are not aware, you are in violation of child abuse laws in the state of PA. I have a copy of the definitions here, and I have highlighted section 8, number 5, where it clearly states, interfering with the child's breathing is considered child abuse. I would even go as far as to say the board is in violation of number 3 listed here as well, which states in summary, causing or substantially contributing to serious mental injury to a child. On page 2, the definition of serious mental injury states, 1, renders the child chronically and severely anxious, agitated, depressed, socially withdrawn, psychotic, or in reasonable fear that the child's life or safety is threatened. Or 2, seriously interferes with the child's ability to accomplish age-appropriate developmental and social tasks. If the board does not take masks off the children effective immediately, parents will have no other option but to start filing insurance claims with the board's open and bond insurance provider, since you are violating the Pennsylvania and U.S. constitutions and violating your oaths of office by continuing to oppress the students' ability to breathe freely. And this is an address to Rebecca and Andrew, because I know that you guys were for this optional back in August.
Thank you, Mrs. Hall. I believe the next person is, if I can read this correctly, is the last name Perch. Is it Brooke?
Hi, my name is Brooke, and I have lived by Caronia Park here in Coatesville for the last 5 years. So I would say I was newer to the town. When I heard bad things about Coatesville, I would brush it off until, I could listen to for myself. Well, thank you. Now I have a bad taste. The court's ruling affirms that PA public schools, which are a Commonwealth agent just like the Department of Health, do not have the statutory authority to mandate masks because of the 1949 PA school code, which means you don't have the right. Well, you might say, we made the health plan and safety plan before this mandate went into effect. Well, why have I talked to other schools that have flat out told their parents their plan is now void, even without a vote? Because what you're doing now is illegal. You might even state section 5 in the code. Well, that you need permission, and we don't give you that permission. Parents and community members have stated they just want everyone healthy, and we don't want to bring it home to our family. Well, even one stating because of their partner's health. The board needs to be more concerned about the fact they hire staff that have clearly blasted on the internet that they're using their teacher's position to clearly make students that don't wear their mask correctly more of an issue than them partying up on the dance floor maskless, even though they are worried about bringing it home. Well, I'm sorry, they probably won't get sick there because clearly your rules with COVID only happens during school hours. Because we won't see eye to eye, follow the law, because clearly the Supreme Court thinks masks shouldn't be ruled by the schools, because you don't know what I need for my family, push us. We are the parents, we are the taxpayers, we are the people that live in Cooksville that make the rules.
Thank you, Ms. Birch. Lori Shannon Bailey.
Good evening. I have a few questions for the Finance Committee, and I don't expect an answer tonight, so I look forward to an answer. For the $4.5 million that we were notified in September that we owed for Abbott Grove and for Collegium, is any of that money coming out of the payments to both of those schools that's reflected in the budget? Is the first question. And the second question would be for the Apex. It may have been on the other financial statement, but I believe, Andrew, you asked about it at the last board meeting. So my question would be specifically, how is that contributing to online learning? Because I think primarily we're in-person learning, so I'd like to know more about what that looks like. And then finally, not finally, but the third question would be for the HR addendum. I see that we're hiring a special education supervisor, and her salary, I think it's going to be prorated. So how is it that she's going to be paid from the beginning of the school year, since now we're just about for the semester to be? So I'm just trying to understand, was she here at the beginning of the school year and we didn't have it on the budget? I'd like to know that. And then finally, for Ms. Hammer, for your budget reports, even for the last one, how can the public have access to those reports? They are very, very informative. It's a lot of information, and it's really too much information for me to try to hold in my brain during the board meeting. So we'd like to know how the public can have access to that information. Thank you.
Mr. Fisher, can I ask a quick clarifying question? Ms. Shannon Bailey. Just so I understand your first question, are you asking if we're withholding payments to the charter schools, or is that back payment that is requested from them, or is that being pulled from our current budget? Is that your question? Okay, thank you.
Ms. Shannon Bailey, I think it would be easy to answer your last question right now. I would assume that the special education supervisors that we're hiring will be prorated, meaning that her salary will be prorated from the time she starts to the end of the school year. Is that correct? Moving on to agenda item 5A, executive session. An executive session was held on December 7, 2021 and December 13, 2021 for legal and personnel reasons. And I believe we're going to skip over agenda item 6. Our student representatives are not here with us this evening. So that takes us to agenda item 7A, superintendent's report. Mr. Hammond.
Thank you. Thank you, President Fisher. Thank you for those who are here this evening. It's good to see our students. Season's greetings, Coastal Area School District families. We are now about halfway through the school year, and as I reflect on the past half year, I've seen growth within our community, especially in our faculty and student body. A little later, we're going to hear about that growth with our student body and a presentation that's going to happen by the staff. Our daily practices continue to improve, and we've learned from our experiences and put plans into motion that continue to drive us to meet the needs of our students. As we prepare for the 22 school year, for the 22 calendar year, we will continue to examine what we can do to be a better school district. One thing I've learned from my experience thus far is that this is a very passionate community that is invested in the success of our students, and I can think of nothing more important than doing this work in service of our students and families. We have grown our board of directors, and I'd like to once again welcome our new school board members, Ms. Jennifer Shaw from Region 2 and Ms. Holly Jarvis from Region 1. In addition, congratulations go to Mr. Finkbonner and Mr. Fisher, who were re-elected, and Mr. Fisher will continue to serve as our president, and we welcome Brandon Rome as our new vice president. Congratulations. And as we welcome these new members, as we said last time, we're very, very indebted to Mr. Tom Keach and Mr. Josh Kranz for their dedication to the students and the families of our district. All right. Last meeting, our school board of directors voted on new bus routes that would allow us to eliminate morning transfer points for students in grades 6 through 12, effective January 3rd. Once again, special thanks to our transportation department and our IT department and all our staff and administrators. We look forward to improving the morning routine and continue to examine our transportation procedures as we prepare for next school year. We continue to communicate with families the fact that we will be eliminating transfer points as of January 3rd, so that they have access to those schedules. In fact, last week I boarded a few buses to remind students of the end of the transfer points and to see how many had actually accessed their schedules. And I was glad to see that many hands went up, even with schedules in their hands. So that was good to see on one of our mornings. I'd also like to send a friendly reminder to the students who are on buses to ensure that you consistently wear your masks and do so correctly. Young people, you're doing it wonderfully well. Remember, masks up, right? Thumbs up, young people, thumbs up. There you go, thank you. Our schools are celebrating the holidays, and this past Saturday I joined many who were excited to attend a concert by the legendary Meister singers, current and former. The performance incorporated an array of performances by students from across the district, and many thanks to our students and staff for putting on a terrific show. And Mr. Brown, thank you for joining me there. It was a great time to see our students in action. And at the intermediate high school, tonight is the final performance of Painting Path's Bah Humbug. I had the pleasure of attending opening night and had a blast. I know that across our schools there have been many exciting events to celebrate the holiday season through learning and fun. And for that, we'd like to thank our principals, our teachers, all of our staff in our buildings, and a special thanks to our PTOs for everything they do to make the season so much more enjoyable in our schools by providing activities to bring the spirit of the season alive. During the past few weeks, I, as well as a number of our board members, have had an opportunity to experience our newly implemented data team meetings. I was impressed to see how our school leaders and teachers are engaging with one another to focus on the academic needs of our students to help create the MTSS time that's happening in our schools. I also know that our board members were impressed with what they saw as well. I've also had the opportunity over the last month to engage with our PTOs, our parent-teacher organizations, during our monthly meetings to learn about their experiences and the experiences of their children and the students that they represent in our schools and our district. During our initial meeting, our leaders spoke glowingly about the pilot programs, and you hear about those today, that have been implemented. In addition, they acknowledged that data conversations are also happening between families and teachers with regard to how schools are supporting learning. Our PTOs do a lot, do much to support our schools, students, and staff to enhance the experiences. So thanks to those families who dedicate countless hours to our schools to ensure they are wonderful places to be and learn. I look forward to continuing meeting with our families, and our staff does as well, in January moving forward. In addition, I look forward to meeting with boosters during the new calendar year. Like our PTOs, our boosters also invest countless hours to create outstanding and meaningful activities for our students. And in November, and yesterday, December 13th, our district was honored to host our third COVID vaccine clinic and our first for students ages 5 to 11. Approximately 170 students registered to receive their second dose yesterday. And actually, they sat here waiting for their 15 minutes. And thanks to Mr. Smith for the work he's done and the IT team, they were able to project a cartoon so that the students could just wait their 15 minutes and watch something. So, Mr. Smith, thank you for your leadership there. During yesterday's vaccine clinic, we were proud to welcome the Deputy Secretary of Education, Dr. Deborah Carrera from the Pennsylvania Department of Education, who toured the clinic, meeting families, students, and the great team from Woodland Pharmacy who led the event. And again, Mr. Smith, thank you for your leadership to bring these clinics to fruition. In addition, prior to the clinic, we had an opportunity to spend some one-on-one time with the Deputy Secretary to discuss the many initiatives underway in our school district, such as our school-based data teams, student interventions, and pilot programs. Again, this evening you'll hear more about pilot programs from the Educational Services team, and a special thanks to our Director of Educational Services, Mr. Palayo, who joined the visit with the Deputy Secretary to sort of lay out the work that we're doing here in the district. I would point out that we also spoke to our district's financial situation, so she could be reminded that while we are making strides, we do need help financially. Later this evening, our business manager, Ms. Diefendorfer, will provide an update on the budget. In addition to hosting the Deputy Secretary of Education yesterday, this week the district will host a number of elected officials from our local legislative delegation. On Thursday, December 16th, we look forward to hosting Representative Tim Hennessy at Kings Highway Elementary School. And on Friday, December 17th, we will host Senator Carolyn Camilla, Representative Dan Williams, and representatives from State Senator Muth and Representative Daniel Friel-Otten's offices at the Scott 6th Grade Center. We're really excited to show our work that we're doing here. They'll hear from our school leaders, from staff, from students, and tour our schools to see the work in which our students and staff are engaging in. In the future, we look forward to welcoming legislators from across the Commonwealth so they too can experience our district. And on behalf of the school district's administrative team, I want to wish all of our families, students, faculty, and staff a very happy holiday, and I look forward to bringing in the new year with you all. Mr. President, this concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Hanna. Moving on to agenda item 7B, important dates. January 11, 2022, 6 o'clock p.m., all committees and special board meeting, Coastal Area Senior High School Auditorium. January 25th, 2022, 7 o'clock p.m., school board meeting, Coastal Area Senior High School Auditorium. Agenda item 8A, special reports. 2022-23 school district budget update, Mr. Hanna and Ms. Diefendorfer.
Thank you, President Fisher. Good evening, school board directors and community members. Tonight we want to give you a very brief update on our budget for the 22-23 school year. Is it out there? I'm sorry. It is? Oh.
We're going to take a pause on the budget presentation. We have some of our finest young people here with us this evening, and with a school day looming tomorrow morning, let's do our recognition now. And I believe that's Dr. Miles.
You are appropriately attired, Dr. Miles. We love that number 24. Absolutely.
Good evening, school board directors. Thank you for the opportunity, for giving me this time to come and present Kings Highway. To all of my students, my families, thank you all for coming out. I want to be intrigued with what we have to present to you tonight, because we are definitely doing some great things at Kings Highway. I want to thank you all for allowing us to have the initiatives that we brought into all of our schools, because they are definitely benefiting our students. And with IXL, with Lexia, with the MTSS model that we're doing at each of our schools. Tonight in particular, we're going to focus on Lexia. And I want to show you some things about Kings Highway, right? Many of you know already, because you have already looked at what Lexia is, but there are many people in the audience that don't know exactly what Lexia is all about. Lexia Core 5 is an engagingly fun, evidence-based interactive computer program that assists our students in improving their literacy skills. It provides explicit, systematic, adaptive learning that scaffolds students if they struggle. There are 6 areas of reading that it addresses: phonological awareness, phonics, structural analysis, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. So through either guided or direct instruction on specific specific types, Lexia advances our students as they demonstrate proficiency. It also creates a customized learning path for each student through an adaptive placement and scaffolded activities that align to state standards. As an example of this, the students first take the placement test, then it's given a standard level. If they start to show some areas of struggle or deficiency, it takes them down another notch. And then once it does, once it does that, instruction, the teacher can actually address the specific deficiencies that the students have, so they can address what's going on with that particular student. So where did we start at Kings Highway? If you can see here, 80% of our students, when they took the placement, started below grade level materials. 20% of whom were in grade level. Currently, as it stands as of yesterday, 64% of our students are in grade level materials, which is a 16% decrease from below grade level to in grade level. Not only that, there are 3% of our students who have also gone in the above range, above grade level materials as well. So we're very proud of that, because it's only been, even though you see it's August 30th to December 13th, we didn't start on August 30th. We actually started on October 4th, where students were just starting to become familiar with the program, and then 52 students were first using Lexia, and then it started to gradually increase where more teachers were getting more comfortable with knowing how to get students on and so forth, and then we started to see the gains happening within our students. And as you can see, this 60% gain is basically about 2 months of this program with our students that we see this tremendous gain. So we're very excited about that, because that's not something that is just, typical when we're looking at that. And so when we kind of funnel this down, what does it look like, and what does the usage look like within our school? There's 100% usage, and definitely we would love to see all of our teachers, and our students using this. But throughout the course of the school day, teaching and learning doesn't just happen, and everyone's not on Lexia all day long, right? So students are engaging it within the school day, and they're engaging with it at home. They're going to see it benefit students much more so. So you can see that 100% of usage is done by Mrs. Kanoff's class and Mrs. May's class. So we definitely want to, congratulate them on how they're, giving guidance to our students and encouraging them to use Lexia. 90 to 95% usage is done by Ms. Baldwin's class, she's first grade, and Ms. Surrey is third grade. Ms. Kanoff is kindergarten, Ms. May is third grade. 80 to 85% usage is done by Mr. Virginski's class and Mrs. Kane's class. That doesn't mean that all the other classes are, failing in that sense, but it means that they're just a little bit under those percentage points. So we definitely want to acknowledge and recognize those students who are pushing the teachers who are pushing their students to engage in Lexia. Mrs. Kane, Mrs. Crumpleton, and Mrs. Bentley's classes, they are our top users in the school. And then we also want to shout out our kindergarten and our third graders, because they have the highest percentage of students who are meeting the usage in Lexia. So this is commendable data that we have here, and we want to follow down to what our students are doing as well. So we want to know how our students are growing. What does this look like as far as what the kids are actually doing? And so, as I stated before, it didn't just start in August, it started in October, but each week, so it goes by, in Lexia, it can go by, what's going on this year, it can go by the last 4 weeks, last week even, and then this week. And so, looking at just, what is going on with our students here, this information that we see here, this is only in 1 week of unit aids, that our students are having. So in kindergarten, Nathan Jones is our top student who has units gained. For just this week, he has gained 54 units in Lexia. Candy Segura, 50 units gained. Colton Dury, 47. Nathan, Candy, and Colton, can you raise your hands? I don't think they can see. Can you stand up? becoming better readers as they're doing these things. So this is so exciting to me. Cooper McLaughlin, 118 units gained. Ben Zittle, 81. David Morales, 70. Those are our first graders. Stand up. Stand up like other Our second graders, Yvette Westmoreland has 33, Kiara Saquez, 32, and Emily Slover. These are our second graders. And even though you see the numbers are at 80 and 70, and you say, well, why aren't they there? It's because it's a customized pathway that they're giving the students. So they're working at their own rate, right? So they're at different levels in their reading, but it's just, it suits them individually. So, and then it's about the usage as well. So it may look one way for one grade, but they're in the 80s. And why isn't my child in, it's only in the 30s, what have you, because it's customized. All right? Yvette, Kiara, and Emily, are you here? I know some parents said they wouldn't be able to get here to do the work and so forth. Yes, and then our intermediate students, 3rd and 5th graders, we have Serena Wadu. She's at 101 units gained this week. The week's not over. Isa Azarac, 50, and Thomas Lawrence, 47. Can you stand, please? Serena. And then Paul Carpenter at 76, Cameron Schwank, 74, Ian Porter at 70. If you guys are here, can you stand, please? Jake Petrie at 37, Kevin Breeze at 27, and Kennedy Crane at 19. Can we please have you stand? So I'll say, this is impressive, right? For 2 months, and then week to week, these are going to change, and we want to definitely encourage our students to work on Lexia in and outside of school because it's only going to benefit them, right? So my plan is starting the new year, we're going to be leveling up, right? So when you come to Kings Highway, you're going to see how our students are leveling up with their reading and be able to visually see how well our students are doing, and they're going to be able to see as well. So it's going to really, bolster their enthusiasm to do better and even do more on Lexia. That is what I have for you at NAP. But at this time, I would like to recognize my students for their achievements. And so I'm going to call your name. When I call your name, you can come up and get your acknowledgement. Kiara Sanchez, I think she's not here. Emily Slover. Kevin. Ian Porter. Candy Segura. Colton Dory. Nathan Jones. Kelly Crane. I just have to, and I don't want to put her on the spot, but listen, this girl's doing big things. Be prepared to see her in the future. She's doing great things. She has surpassed all expectations of what some people may have said. The stock market game Ckli that you might have read in around our news, who came in first place amongst all the elementary schools in Coatesville and ranked second in the state of Pennsylvania.
So Dr. Miles, before you walk away, first and foremost, congratulations to you and your teaching staff on a job well done. And that's on behalf of the entire board of directors. But more importantly, thank you for your enthusiasm. Thank you for your enthusiasm. Dr. Miles, do we still have what they call it, pride dollars?
Oh, yes, we do.
You throwing a few of these young people's way?
Boys and girls, what do we show at Kings Highway? Pride. Wait, what do we show? Pride. That's right, we show pride.
Once again, congratulations to all our young people, and keep up the great work. And we can't wait to see where you're going to be come June. So keep working hard and keep making those gains, and we'll be anxious to see where you are in June. And congratulations to the parents as well. Thank you for your support as well. Thank you.
Mr. Fisher, if you don't mind, if I can just throw a comment out there as well. A lot of people ask, why does someone want to become a school board director, right? And we look at, business aspect and numbers and things of that nature. But, this for me is the reason why I do it, right? And Mr. Fisher, thank you for flipping the agenda, right? Because we're going to look at some other numbers that might be a little different, right? But these numbers, right? These units gained and the excitement that happens. I'll be a little biased as a Kings Highway parent. Mr. Fisher, you are correct. The energy that comes out of Dr. Miles at any given time walking in that building, you can expect a very energetic and always moving. You got to have a pair of roller skates to keep up with Dr. Miles in that building. To the students and the parents, again, thank you, and again, Dr. Miles, to you and your staff and the wonderful work that's being done in that building. And there's great work being done in other buildings, but when folks ask why do we do this, right, this for me, this is my why.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Okay, Mr. Hanna, let's revert back to agenda item 8A, and that is the budget update.
Oh, is she up here? Okay, I want to get a picture of your back on. I was going now.
Shared last time, this slide lays out our roadmap for developing our budget. Step 1, project the number of students. This step was completed and shared at our committee meeting in November. Step 2, determine personnel requirements. We are looking to complete this step in February. Step 3, estimate expenditures. Over the next few months, we'll be working to develop our estimated expenditures. Step 4, estimate revenues. Over the next few months, we'll be working to develop our estimated revenues. And step 5, balance the budget. All of these steps will be necessary as we find ways to balance our budget. As previously mentioned, the second step in our budget roadmap is personnel. Meetings will be conducted to make sure we have the proper staffing in place to meet the instructional and operational needs of the district. This includes instructional staff, instructional support staff, school-level administrative, clerical, custodial, and food service staff, district-level administrative, supervisory, and clerical staff. As I mentioned earlier, our goal is to have this completed by February. Ms. Stephen.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Next in the budget roadmap is to estimate our expenditures. These are very high-level preliminary expense projections for 22-23. Salaries and benefits are projected at approximately $71.1 million. Support of other schools, which are your charter schools, VOTEC, approved private schools, is projected at approximately $67 million. Transportation is projected at approximately $9.2 million. Special education costs is approximately $16.1 million. Other spending, which includes areas such as facilities, technology, building budgets, athletics, is projected at $13.7 million. And debt and legal is approximately $17.9 million. Next is to estimate our revenues. These are our preliminary revenue projections for 22-23 based on our funding sources. We have projected local revenues to be approximately $126.4 million, and this is based on our current millage rate of 39.691. We have projected state revenues to come in around the same as last year at approximately $54 million, and we have projected federal revenues to come in around $5.6 million. Based on our preliminary numbers, we have a budget gap of about $9 million that we will need to take into consideration as we work to balance our budget. Balancing the budget is the last major step in completing the budget roadmap for 22-23. We will share on a monthly basis where we are with our projected revenues and expenses and what that means for potential tax increases or potential needs for cuts. Mr. Hannah?
This is the current millage rate, and we know based on the Act 1 adjusted index, it can possibly go up between 0% and 4.4%. We have not proposed a preliminary millage needed to fund the 22-23 budget, but we'll continue to review this and as we begin to firm up the 22-23 budget. This budget timeline reflects upcoming key dates. We are recommending that the board use a time frame that stays within the Act 1 index of 4.4%.
Any questions? Ms. Shadowville, I know you asked earlier about the budget presentations, and they are posted on the website, so you'll see that tomorrow. And you'll also see at the bottom of our homepage, there's a icon of the budget, and if you click on that, it'll take you directly to where our budgets are located.
Mr. Hannah, let's move on to agenda item 8B, and that's the 2021-22 pilot program update curriculum team.
Yes, we'd love the curriculum team to come up. Under the leadership of Mr. Ckli.
Good evening, Board of School Directors, Mr. Hannah, and community members. Thanks for starting off with the presentation of the students. I think it's really to come tonight and see some of the excellent work that's been done by the teachers and our children. As we progress through this evening's presentation, you're going to hear a little bit about the pilot programs that we have going on within the district for our English language arts classes. Most of you have probably heard me talk a little bit about moving from balanced literacy to structured literacy. It's a movement that's taking place across the nation, and that's in an effort to strengthen students' early reading abilities. We have noticed over the past 6-7 years that our students are struggling with those foundational skills in reading. And we're not saying it's 100% because of the program that we're using right now, but we need to have a comparison to see what's working and what is not working. So this year we were fortunate enough to have the approval of the school board where we were able to pilot several programs in our elementary and middle schools, which we greatly appreciate. We've noticed that there's definitely been an increase in student achievement, as you saw earlier, but specifically in our classes that are using these pilot programs. We're seeing students move a lot faster through some of these skill-based assessments that we're implementing within the classrooms. I'm going to let Ms. Cassandra Jones and Rebecca Ckli, who is our K-7 ELA coordinator, and Ms. Cassandra Jones is our administrator on assignment for ELA and social studies, provide you some background on this, and then I'll talk a little bit about the MTSS process that we've implemented this year also.
Good evening. I'm super excited to be able to provide all of you with an update on our core program pilot that is taking place this year. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to do this in the district. So what we're looking for currently, we are looking for programs that reflect current and confirmed research in reading and cognitive science. So we're looking for programs that align with the science of reading and the science of writing. And what that really means is there's a substantial body of research that exists that tells us exactly how the brain learns to read, and we need to follow that. We're looking for close alignment to the PA core standards. We want explicit, sequential, systematic, and cumulative instruction. We don't want to leave learning up to chance. We want to ensure that all of our students, regardless of the skills they're coming into school with, are able to have the same opportunities as other learners. We want coordinated components, so we want an integrated approach where a student doesn't learn a skill in isolation, but they're able to actually take that skill and apply it throughout their school day. We want assessment, ongoing, formative, and summative assessment, because that's what is really going to help drive instruction and intervention for our students. And then we also want strong professional development. And And we want professional development that goes beyond just being able to implement the program, but really helps our teachers improve their instructional practices on an everyday basis. So in elementary, we're piloting 2 programs. These are top-rated programs, and when we present these programs to the board, we provided a significant amount of research and independent evaluations of these programs. So we're piloting Open Court Reading and Amplify CKLA. I'm going to start by talking about Open Court Reading. We're piloting it in 1 classroom in each grade level, K to 5. The buildings that we're piloting in are Leesville, Callan, Kings Highway, and East Fallowfield. We have a fabulous group of pilot teachers, and as I get into the presentation, you're going to see how grateful they are to have these resources, but what I can share right now is that we're really grateful to have them. It is a lot of work to pilot a new program, and they are doing it alone in each grade level. They don't have a partner that's doing it alongside of them to share that workload. They're doing this all on their own, and I very much appreciate the work that they're doing in service to our students. They had initial training over the summer. Since then, they've received 1 additional virtual coaching session and 1 in-person coaching session, and then they have another session scheduled for tomorrow. So I'm going to take you into an open court classroom. So the top right, students in Mrs. McCausland's kindergarten classroom at Reesville are classifying nouns. They're actually using the proper terminology, proper noun. The kids were telling me what a proper noun was, explaining that we capitalize a proper noun because it's important, it's specific. It was so awesome to see. Top left, students in Mr. Lyden's 4th grade classroom engaged in close reading activity. So they're going back, they're rereading, a small portion of a particular story that they've been reading as a whole class, and they're going in and they're finding evidence, which is amazing, to support some type of statement, whether it be, they're answering a specific question about the text and then they have to go in and find text evidence. That's in line with what the state is expecting of our students as far as the standards goes. And then the bottom is students in Mr. DeHaut's class in 5th grade that are practicing their word analysis skills. So they're learning morphology. They're learning that smallest unit of meaning. That's really going to aid comprehension, understanding prefixes and suffixes and the meaning attached to those, so that's going to aid comprehension as they read. And then what teachers have to say about open court. So I reached out to our pilot teachers, to kind of share how they, felt about the program. I'm not going to read this, it's a ton, but I wanted to include all of it so that if you would like, or the community would like, they can go back and kind of read what the teachers are seeing, the successes, and I did say to them, provide the good and the bad, right? We want to be honest, we want to make sure we're choosing the best program for our students, but to be honest, there really wasn't any negative. So I'm going to just kind of highlight key points. This was submitted by Alyssa Lombardo. She's a 2nd grade teacher over at East Fallowfield, and Sheila Norton, who's a 1st grade teacher also at East Fallowfield. So they just shared, we are excited to teach this amazing program each day. Each new unit begins with a background builder video. This ensures all students can have background knowledge to contribute to class discussion. All students can participate regardless of their prior knowledge or their academic levels. The students' attention and excitement for each lesson is evident in their classroom participation and classwork, which includes hands-on activities during the lesson, quick and colorful videos that explicitly teach, workbook pages, decodable readers, anthologies, and interventions. Foundational lessons, which include phonemic awareness, phonics and decoding, guided practice, dictation and spelling, and fluency within decodable readers. And Mrs. Norton noted there's 114 decodable readers just in 1st grade alone. In reading, students are exposed to different genres in which they are summarizing, clarifying, asking and answering questions, predicting and making connections, and visualizing when they're reading. And in language arts, they're working on writing, they're working on penmanship, so students have explicit handwriting instruction, and grammar, usage, and mechanics. And they need a little bit of thought on, wow, we are hard at work. And they are. They're hard at work and their students are hard at work. And it's amazing to be in those classrooms and to see the learning that's occurring. I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca. She is a pilot teacher for CKLA, so I'm going to tell you she's a little biased.
Good I'm going to speak a little bit about Amplify CKLA. It's piloting in one classroom in each grade level, same as Open Court at Callan Kings Highway Rainbow. Initial training was provided in July and August, and staff were given the opportunity to attend open enrollment virtual training sessions and webinars, which have been very helpful and informative. Staff has received 3 virtual coaching sessions, 1 in-person coaching session, and an additional session is scheduled for January 21st. CKLA in action. At the bottom, you can see, with assistance, kindergarten students in Mrs. Schuller's class examining interactions between characters in a folktale. And then my classroom is in the top left and the top right. My 4th grade class reenacted a battle between the Muslim and Byzantine armies during the Empires in the Middle Ages unit. And on the other side, I transformed my classroom into a medieval castle to help bring the content to life for the students. Mr. Hanna joined us in our medieval class for one of our lessons after another battle, the Battle of Hastings, that changed the world as we know it and how we speak. So the students were able to make connections with Anglo-Saxon language to our language today, which was pretty cool. So again, we're going to highlight some of the things that teachers have to say about CKLA. Mrs. Sebastianelli says the skills portion of CKLA program offers integrated phonics, reading, and workbook resources to support students in practicing their skills. It is wonderful to have access to these helpful resources. The knowledge portion of CKLA is quite rigorous and uses the backbone of social studies topics for students to practice reading comprehension, sequencing, vocabulary, and more. Mrs. Sebastianelli said that she is grateful for the rich content that CKLA has to offer, and her students continue to be challenged every day. Ms. Gaetano Swisher said she is grateful for the opportunity to pilot CKLA. She loves the structure and the predictability of the skills lessons. The first graders enjoyed the engaging activities such as pop-out chaining, in which the students hold large letter cards and build words as a class. The knowledge lessons build a shared core knowledge for our class. Each day we think of a fun fact or 2 to share our knowledge with our families. One fact we shared was, did you know the smallest bone in the ear is in the ear and it is the size of a grain of rice? And some of the facts our families check on using Alexa. And then at our middle school, there's 2 pilots being piloted, Amplify, which is a continuation of Amplify CKLA, and Wit and Wisdom. So I'm going to again talk a little bit about the Amplify program. It's being piloted in 2 classrooms in each grade level, 6 and 7. Initial training was provided in August. Staff was given the opportunity to attend open enrollment virtual training sessions, and then staff has received 1 virtual coaching session and 1 in-person coaching session. Here's Amplify in action. After completing a closed read of Mrs. Pratchett's Revenge, students in Mr. Gibson's 6th grade ELA class discussed the difference between a connotation, feelings and emotions, and a denotation, which is true meaning. And Ms. Bird said, in our new unit, students have transformed into medical investigators and are searching for the cause of yellow fever. Students read and respond to nonfiction passages, often working with a partner. At the end of class, students respond to a prompt of the day. Students are required to include a claim, text evidence, and explanation. I like that Amplify is a comprehensive program that includes vocabulary, grammar, reading, speaking, and listening, and writing. Each lesson is based around at least 1 common core standard. I also love that Amplify can be differentiated based on individual student needs. And Ms. Seeker says it is culturally diverse and the literary pieces are engaging the students. The curriculum builds skills slowly but surely. All work is evidence-based and there is a reading comprehension and writing component for every lesson. Assessments have provided an honest view of student ability. She has been seriously impressed with the students' writing. The quality is above and beyond what she has seen in the past for all levels. The students themselves are thrilled with what they have produced. So I appreciate the opportunity to be able to be one of the pilot teachers, and I am thrilled with the Amplify program.
And I'm going to cover the 2nd middle school program, which is Wit and Wisdom, which we are piloting in 2 classrooms in each grade level, 6 and 7. So initial training was in August, and the staff have received 2 virtual coaching sessions. here's wit and wisdom in the classroom. So students in Ms. Holdsworth's 6th grade ELA class examined a famous photograph, the Kentucky flood, to help build background knowledge about living conditions in the Great Depression. Students are reading Bud, Not Buddy, which takes place during this time period. And then what teachers have to say about wit and wisdom. John Alberzinski and Sean Noonan are both 7th grade teachers at North Brandywine. They shared, "We love the integrated approach to teaching reading, writing, speaking, and listening skills. It has been amazing to see all students accessing grade-appropriate text. We have seen noticeable improvement in our students' critical thinking skills by diving deep with character and plot development through whole class novel studies. The content is rigorous, and our students have benefited from the challenge." And now I'm going to talk about the timeline, okay? So from December to January, we are going to be auditing our pilot programs to ensure alignment to the science of reading, as well as the PA core standards. So we have our curriculum writers currently doing a deep dive into each program, and they're completing an alignment document, okay? The purpose of that is really to identify any gaps that might exist so that we can proactively supplement next year when we go to adopt. We're going to administer our winter benchmark assessments, and then we're going to increase exposure beyond the pilot group. And what that means is that we're going to be offering other teachers the opportunity to pilot at least one unit in the program of their choice, whether they choose to do CKLA or they choose to do open court. We're giving them the opportunity to be exposed to the program so that we can get additional feedback outside of the pilot group. In February 2022, we're going to do an analysis of our winter benchmark data. We're really going to be looking at student growth and the health of our Tier 1 instruction across classrooms, and that's really going to help us make the best decision as far as which program we elect moving forward. We're going to do program selection, and our goal is to come back to you in February with a recommendation. In March through May, we're going to train our staff on the selected programs. We're going to complete the curriculum framework documents for K to 7. There are components of those documents that we can't complete without knowing what our core resource is going to be. We're going to develop a scope and sequence, and we're going to develop pacing guides. We're hoping to have that all done by the end of the school year so that we can have a clean rollout. In June, we're going to update our course selection guide because currently our course selection guide is written based off of our current core program. And then we're going to revise our K to 5 standards-based report card to, again, ensure that it reflects our PA core standards. And then in August, we're going to provide additional training on the core program. The reason for that is we're training staff this year. They're not going to have exposure over the summer. We want to ensure that they feel supported. Any questions?
Mr. Ckli, not a question, just a comment to you and ladies, and to all of the teachers who are piloting these programs. We are grateful, and we are grateful for your hard work. And when you look ahead in the initiatives that you just mentioned, much more hard work yet to come. But it certainly does our hearts good to see that things that this board has given approval for are progressing. And most importantly, as we saw earlier this evening, the students are progressing. So to Mr. Hanna, thank you for making this a part of our agenda this evening, and we look forward to, on a monthly basis, continuing to see the growth of our initiatives that we put forward. So ladies, thank you. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you to all of your teachers who are working so hard. And Mr. Ckli, thank you for directing them throughout.
Just wanted to make a comment. Well, first and foremost, I'm not going to do it justice, but Henry said it's looking down on this saying, wonderful. So this is this is fantastic. This is yeah, I think oftentimes we get lost in the dollar and cents focus in the educational system, and I think yeah, I can speak for myself sometimes. I lose focus of the fact that the main pillar of the educational system is academia. So I appreciate this presentation. It's very informative. And as Mr. Fisher said, I look forward to seeing more. Thank you.
So I have a question. Can everyone hear me? Yes? No? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry. we doing at the campus? So I feel that our kids are dropping off at 7th grade and we have nothing for them over there. So is there a plan in place for them? What is the campus going to look like?
So, Mrs. Harlan, just to answer, I know the campus is 8th through 12th grade, but when we purchase the programs to support the programs that we're piloting right now, they will support K to 8. So from 9 through 12, we're looking at some supplemental reading supports to assist with the students who not only had learning loss due to the pandemic, but also because they were struggling readers prior to the pandemic. So while we're not piloting a specific core program, we're looking at interventions and supplemental supports for 9 through 12, and additional support through the reading specialists.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So, Mr. Fisher, thank you, and the rest of the board, thank you. I think it is important to commend the pilot teachers, but I also think it's important that we recognize our teaching staff as a whole. We're coming out of an extremely unique year, and we're seeing a lot of struggling learners, K to 12. And we're seeing students that are exhibiting some behavioral issues that we may not have seen in years past due to frustration, lack of exposure to academics for the last school year. The teachers have been doing a wonderful job implementing a new process and procedures through MTSS. And I think that needs to be recognized as a whole by the school board, by our community, by the administration. And I think it's also important to recognize the curriculum team, Cassandra Jones, Lynn Mancinelli, and Heather Messenger, for the MTSS toolkit that they created. And if you haven't seen it, it's located under the curriculum page. This is a very comprehensive document. The goal was to support academic, behavioral, and emotional needs of our students. You've heard me talk a little bit about MTSS in the past. Initially, when the team started creating this document, and again, it's a comprehensive document, it's probably one of the most well-written document that we have in the district other than the comprehensive plan right now. There was a shared vision, which was to use high-quality data to empower all of our stakeholders to make informed decisions and ensuring that the academic, social, and emotional success of our students are met. The team created a mission. That mission of the Coatesville Area School District Data Team is to gather and analyze relevant data to inform decisions related to instruction, programming, supports, and services, ensuring equity and improving student growth and achievement. Again, it's extremely important if you have time to take a look at this document, and it's not light reading, so it'll take you a little bit while to get through this. We're heavily focusing on our literacy, hence the presentation this evening, but we want to ensure that we're targeting specific needs and deficits. So you've heard me talk at the last meeting about those benchmark tests that we've been administering to our students through Acadians and NWEA MAP. It's the results from these assessments that indicate whether a child may need some more support in the core programs, or if they may need strategic support or intensive support. So these data meetings that we're having twice a month, and the third voluntary meeting is extremely important. And again, I need to commend the teachers for their for them attending, but also being extremely engaged in understanding the deficits that our students are facing and wanting to create and work with the curriculum team to ensure that we have interventions targeting those students' needs. And the toolkit you'll see also includes flowcharts for elementary and secondary teachers that explain what skills students may need based on results from these assessments. Teachers can use this information to determine if students need to work on phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, or comprehension. The toolkit also outlines how data teams are run, how often they meet, and who should attend. Protocols for meetings are also defined in the toolkit. Data and information discussed at the team meetings drive student groups and interventions being used to support student needs. I think the process that we set up over the summer and through the course of the fall We will see some significant results in student achievement. We've already seen that from the presentation this evening. And as we progress through the school year, we will be back every month to give you updates on various aspects of what the curriculum team is doing. But again, I think it's important to recognize not only the work of the curriculum team, but more importantly, the work that the teachers are doing daily in the classroom with that data to drive instruction and to drive the decisions that they're making for the students that they serve. Any questions?
I wanted to add a couple things. This is another Henry Aceto story. I didn't know Henry before 2019 when I joined the board. And one of the first things Henry did, he had come back from Harrisburg and a session, all excited. He had heard about, remember this? He had heard about MTSS. And so 2019, he's banging on the table saying, we really need to look at this and see about it for our kids. Well, sadly, the pandemic came and pushed all that behind. But I'm sure he's smiling about this now because we're putting it in place. I had the good experience of going to 4 data team meetings, 2 at East Battlefield and 2 at Kings Highway. And, you know, we use big words when we're in education, and then we cut them down to MTSS. But fundamentally, the teachers are sitting around the table talking about each and every kid in their grade level. And they're talking about how the child did and the improvement that they've seen since the last time. That is highly exciting. And it even gets better because then they talk about strategies, about how we might teach this skill, how this worked for me and it might work for you. And I heard one this week at Kings Highway, she puts shaving cream on the poster and it goes like that and wipes it off so the kids can see the letters. But it was wonderful, and we do have really good teachers, and the work that they put in, we will see the results. And I am grateful for all the work, and in Henry's memory, we're grateful for putting this in place.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item 8C, Health Safety Plan. Mr. Hanna.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Let me, go ahead. President Fisher, thank you to the board. I wanted to provide you an update on the health and safety plan. We're picking up pretty much where we left off in the summer, but updating that, it's a little briefer. Just want to remind, as a reminder to our public, that the plan that the board approved in August speaks to what our mitigation plan was based on what we implemented the year previous. And our goals are twofold: to ensure we're all safe and to ensure the best in-person educational experience possible. What are we doing? We're continuing to implement our cleaning protocols. That includes staff who are engaging in high-touch areas. The bottle filling dispensers have all been installed throughout our buildings. They're touchless, and our nurse staff continue to not only be trained, but to support our students and staff with contact tracing. I cannot tell you how much time that takes for administrators to engage in, as well as our nurses to engage in. We've got administrators and staff calling folks, 6 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock at night, bus companies and things of this sort. So to our administrators, thank you for what you're doing. We know that we're here to engage in the conversation we just had, but this pandemic has taken us away from that. So thank you for that. And to our parents, we appreciate your support as well. Some data points. The transmission level in Chester County is high. And for the week ending last Friday, the 10th of December, there were 1,610 positive test counts, which amounts to a 306 per 100,000 in terms of rate of infection. We'll see some data a little later. You might recall, a year and a half ago, we were looking at 50 over 100 being really high, right? We're at 300 per 100,000 cases, and our PCR level is if you round up at 10, right, 9.89. And the 4-week average, you can see not that much, a little bit, right? But we can see that here. We were posting the information specifically to Coastal, but that data, the health department has not published that in a while. As soon as that gets published again, we'll be sure that we put it out there. With regard to vaccination levels, which we spoke about previously, here you can see where we are with regard to ages 5 to 9 and ages 10 to 14 with at least one shot. Right, so we've got partially vaccinated between ages of 5 and 9, 19%, fully vaccinated 14%. So in that age group with at least one vaccine, you're looking at 34% of the students. It's fair, right? They just started receiving the vaccine, so we see that. Ages 10 to 14, you see a little higher with at least one vaccine, 51%, partially 13%, and fully vaccinated 38%. The next group, ages 15 to 19, it makes sense that this would be much larger, just given that these have been vaccinated for a longer period of time. Partially 9%, fully vaccinated 62%, and at least one vaccine 73%. All of this is data that was pulled from the Chester County Health Department. You can see we've annotated that below. As it relates to the closest I can get to what's happening in Coastal is the last 14 days on our website. We have the COVID tracker. Our dashboard. So over the last 14 days, we've had 32 positive and probable cases. So probable would be someone who hasn't yet tested positive, but they're showing symptoms. And in this case, we've seen 32 over the last 14 days, which amounts to a 0.005%. So a very small number when you take a look at our student body here, in Coatesville. So options that we considered in August was universal masking for staff and visitors regardless of vaccination status. That's what's in place currently. We also thought about mask optional during the summer. We had mask optional and when we return. And we also committed to reviewing the transmission levels and applying to thresholds. And what that means, applying to thresholds, is based on data. I want to remind you before we go through the threshold where we are, and I point your attention to that 306.67 per 100,000 in the PCR count. So the recommendation in August, and I know this is small, and I'll just go through it very quickly, is if we were at a low transmission rate, I want to point out, a low transmission rate would mean less than 10 cases per 100,000. I point you back to, we're at what currently? 306, right? So there's some of us who think, given this, will we ever get there, right? There's confidence that we will, and I'll share with you a conversation we superintendents had earlier today. If we were in low, masks would be optional indoors. Masks required on buses. That's a federal requirement, federal mandate. In the moderate side, which is 10 to 49, right? Again, we're at 306. Or a PCR rate of between 5 and 7.9. We're actually closer there, as we're at 8.89 or 9.89% in terms of a PCR rate. But in this case, once you get to moderate, substantial, or high, it's one or the other, right? So there we would require masks. At that time, we were requiring masks for K to 6, primarily because there was no vaccine for that population at that time. Right? And we look at masks recommended 7 to 12 because there was a vaccine for that age group. And the data bear out that we got more at the upper ages who were vaccinated. Substantial, you can see there, right? From 50 to 99 and high over 100 and over 10%. So in this case, we're just showing on the high over the 100%, but we're in the low, we're below on the lower than the 10%. And so here, when you look at that point at high, we were looking at ensuring that masks would be required in buildings and on buses. That was the recommendation of August 10th. What the board approved was, on August 24th, was, yes, you see the thresholds don't matter. We basically said we were going to go masks, universal masking indoors, beginning the 25th and then the following day until further notice. Continue to require the masks on buses, and then you could remove them when you were outdoors or when you were in physical education tested certainly for eating. As it relates to next steps or a recommendation that we're bringing to the board, is that we will review the transmission rates and make recommendations to the board that may result in revisions to the health and safety plan in January 2022, which is what we committed to doing previously, what we communicated to families, last over the weekend after the Supreme Court. We will address the Supreme Court piece after we have our discussion. And with that, I'll open it up to discussion, to questions.
Floor is open for discussion or questions for Mr. Hanna.
Appreciate it, Mr. Fisher. Mr. Hanna, thanks for the update. I think it's vitally important for the conversation. You know, looking at the numbers that were presented, you know, certainly I'm not anywhere near the healthcare profession, so please take this with a grain of salt or one man's opinion. And while I think that there is, you know, you could go to either side of the fence on this particular issue when it comes to masking required, masking optional. You know, as a board member, I'm sure we've all been flooded with those that are for and those that are against. My personal concern or questions become, you know, I think you said at one point you're confident that we're going to get to this 7% number, which then changes the masking. I think that gets us down to the optional stance. You know, I think from just some personal research and you know, having some connections in the medical field, I think this is, some would argue, kind of on the same wavelength as the flu, right? Is this really ever going away? I believe the answer is probably no. There will always be a new strain, a variant strand, and it will continue. So I think at some point we probably, right, have to, the numbers are the numbers, and I'm not disputing the numbers. But I think we probably have to get to a point where there's a decision that needs to be made as to what is, you know, we have, you know, the mantra in the beginning was flatten the curve, and so I think we've gotten there, you know, and I think the curve will forever be this, and so I appreciate the presentation, the numbers, right? The numbers are what they are, but I do think it's time that the board probably looks at this and comes to a decision on next steps.
Thank you, Mr.
I'll jump in real quick if I could. First and foremost, thank you, Mr. Hanna, for sharing that information with us. Very important. I would ask if we could. I think this is one of the things that get lost in translation. It's actually probably the most confusing component of this pandemic and how we handle it within the school system is when there is a close contact or a positive case, it is the quarantine capacity. So I would ask in January, in preparation for that meeting, If there could be a slide included in there just to inform us board members as well as our public of what it is the Chester County Health Department or the CDC, what their guidelines are relating to quarantining for close contacts and positive cases. And I appreciate that. And that takes me to something that, I'll be honest with you, several months ago I didn't weigh this as heavily as I have now. And I think probably the decision to what Mr. Rohn was saying is contingent upon many variables, one of them being the considerations of every board member that sits up here, that has been sitting up here for the last year since the pandemic, year and a half since the pandemic started, is we've heard the narrative from many parents. Mr. Ckli and his team shared academic data that he precluded that discussion by saying the academic performance has been heavily hindered by the situation that our students have gone through. And quite frankly, our staff has as well. One of the biggest challenges that I'm going to have in whatever decision we make is taking into consideration that virtual learning does not work for a lot of our students. There's evidence in the data that supports that. And even furthermore, we have to take into consideration the impact that it has on our staff. Asking our teachers to provide academia to students in person, virtually, as well as using worksheets. And that's, in some cases, I mean, they're superheroes, quite frankly, and there's no better word for it. That's insurmountable in terms of a challenge. And then asking our administration to oversee that, that is a difficult task to master. So I think one of the things that would be helpful for me in making that determination, Mr. Hanna, if I'm circling back, is understanding the components of what the quarantining and the isolation guidelines are going to be, because I think that's something that this board should take heavily into consideration when there is close contact. Those students that are removed from the classroom for an extended period of time that have no other option but to learn virtually, and what type of academic impact is that going to have? Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Finkbeiner, I appreciate that suggestion, and I too would agree that that's an important component for us to make our decision moving forward. And quite frankly, I was going to just ask this evening, we do have some administrators here, and I look forward to a more formal presentation, but just for the general knowledge of the board, and if any one of you would please just chime in. I do understand, and you touched on it, Mr. Finkbeiner, for the administration, it's endless work when you have to do tracing, and it's a very time-consuming thing. And Mr. Hanna, you can weigh in, or whoever can answer the question. Have we had any classrooms completely shut down? When I say that, meaning having to go virtual.
We have.
Okay.
Not a lot, but we have.
Okay.
Groups of students.
Okay. And again, not in a formal presentation, but just for the general knowledge of the board, what were the aspects that caused that classroom to have to shut down? Was it the vicinity of the students, or somebody please, and you don't have to come to the microphone, we can hear you, just
Rebecca, you want to comment, because I know it's...
And I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I think it's important for the board to
I'd say this feature, welcome to the opportunity.
Yeah, so this is something we deal with on a frequent basis. We are in frequent communication with the Chester County Health Department for every situation. When we're conducting close contact tracing, we communicate with staff members throughout the building, anyone that may have information pertaining to identifying close contacts. If there's a situation where, due to vicinity within the classroom, based on the individual identified as the COVID positive case within that location, there have been situations where we've had to quarantine entire classrooms. Again, we do this in communication with the Chester County Health Department when identifying that information. We follow their guidance as well. We provide them with the steps that we're taking. We have to provide them with the reports of those close contacts, but there have been situations where full classes have had to quarantine us.
Okay, and understand if this can't be completely answered now, I look forward to the answer in January. When doing the contact tracing, does whether a student is masked or not masked come into consideration?
Yes, it does come into consideration if the mask is worn appropriately on the child's face, if there's gapping, if the mask is down at any point, if there's been interactions either during a lunch period or outside while kids are engaged, so that does come into play. That is one of the things that most impacts close contact.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, Ms. Feature's here. Any other general questions for her?
Sure. Thanks. When conducting the process, or I'll use the term investigation for lack of a better term, does it come into play? So the positive student, does it come into play that maybe they got it from an event where it was in a public place where masks are not required, and so they were out whatever dinner, U.S. sports flag, soccer, whatever it is, that come into play as well. So not only the masking in the classroom, but also the masking or not masking outside the school.
Yes.
Okay, so where, Dr. Miles, please.
Yeah, I would say, I would add that, to the parent, give us that information as well. If, as to where it occurred, where they received, or where they obtained.
Okay. And Ms. Feature, thank you. And again, I apologize for putting you on the spot.
Mr.
Thank
Fisher,
you.
Mr. Fisher, excuse me, can I just ask her one more question?
Yeah, sure, please.
Thank you. Thank you again for the efforts that you've been doing with the contact tracing. I completely understand. I have had to do contact tracing myself, so I understand. So is quarantining, isolation, is that going to be, is there going to be an additional factor now that kids are getting vaccinated and if they're exposed?
So we've been in the communication with the Chester County Health Department pertaining to this as well. With the vaccination, students have to be fully vaccinated and have to fall within that 2-week period after the vaccination. We also still have to follow those same types of things. If students do become symptomatic while vaccinated, we still follow the same protocols, and we consult with the Chester County Health Department regarding those situations.
Okay, great, thank you.
Ms. Feature, thank you, and I'll continue, but thank you. Please have a seat. So here's where I'm going with this. Mr. Finkbonner, you touched on it in your comments. I'm extremely concerned about large numbers of students being quarantined and not having the opportunity for in-person learning. That's concerning, and I think that I heard through contact tracing that wearing a mask helps to eliminate the number of students who may be asked to quarantine and miss out on that opportunity for in-person learning. So I'm just going on the record as saying I'm extremely concerned about that. So Mr. Hanna, if I hear you correctly, then the recommendation of the administration is to revisit our health and safety plan in January. And if I may, I would suggest that we do that in the first meeting in January, which is January 11th. I agree with Mr. Finkbonner. I think we need to have some kind of formal presentation to help to educate the board even more. So, any other comments?
Yes. I think also the board should also take into consideration the fact that we do have an at-risk population in our district, and we are a community that is about to lose the only hospital in our area. Brandywine is going to be closing January 31st. There is absolute indisputable proof, scientific proof that masking does help stop the spread. Putting families, I think, potentially at risk with no limited access to health care is something that we need to consider.
Ms. Trell, I thank you for commenting on that, and this board is very fortunate to have somebody with your professional background to provide us with information. So thank you for adding that. Any other comments?
Mr. Fisher, if I may, for Mr. Hanna, I highly doubt our ability to have a representative from the Chester County Health Department come out to our public meeting that day. So in lieu of that, is there a way that we can facilitate some questions through you that can be funneled back to the Chester County Health Department so we can get some answers to those in preparation of that meeting?
That's right.
I don't want to put as much as Ms. Petrie, Mrs. Miles did a great job of putting your Chester County Health Department hat on tonight. I think getting some answers directly from them might be advantageous.
I'll first try to see if we can get Ms. Franklin to come join us, and if not, we can send a question, shuttle them back and forth so we get response.
Fair enough.
Dr. Howard, one more thing, I'm sorry. Is it possible to ask a few of the school nurses to join us in that one, and also your
That would be absolutely.
Any other questions? Any other discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Hanna, I do believe you have a prepared statement in reference to the Supreme Court ruling.
I do, thank you. So I'd like to share with you a statement on the mitigation efforts underway in our district. Hear me? I'd like to take this opportunity to address the COVID mitigation efforts being undertaken by the Coatesville Area School District. The school district is acting to keep in-person learning in effect, and in doing so to best protect students, staff, parents, and others who come to our schools. In accordance with legal requirements, the school board adopted a health and safety plan on August 24th, 2021, and will implement that safety plan until it is changed or we are required by legal authority to change it. One of the components of our health and safety plan is to require the wearing of masks. That requirement remains in effect. Some have reached out to the board, to myself, claiming that the masking mandate should be eliminated in light of the decision last week from the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. That decision has no effect on health and safety plans adopted by school districts across the Commonwealth. The decision was a very limited decision, holding only that the masking order imposed by the interim Secretary of Health was invalid because the interim Secretary of Health did not comply with certain procedural requirements imposed by the law when issuing that order. The Supreme Court's decision had nothing to do with whether masking requirements are effective or whether school boards can impose masking requirements. As the Commonwealth Court, whose decision the Supreme Court affirmed, said, quote, preliminarily, we note that we express herein no opinion regarding the science or efficacy of mask wearing or the politics underlying the considerable controversy the subject continues to engender. See Wolf versus Garnett. Instead, we decide herein only the narrow legal question of whether the acting secretary acted properly in issuing the masking order in the absence of either legislative oversight or a declaration of disaster emergency by the governor. Simply stated, the manner in which we put together our recommendation mandating masks gives the district, we believe, gives the district the best opportunity, the best chance of keeping schools open and of protecting students, staff, and other visitors to the school. This statement will be placed on the website, Mr. President, so that folks can see that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Hanna. If there are no other questions or comments, we will move on to agenda item 9A, adoption of consent agenda. Recommend a motion that the Board of School Directors approve the consent agenda items. Do I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Committee meeting action items considered routine will be enacted under one motion unless removed for separate action upon board request. The purpose of the consolidated motion is to expedite governing board action on all consent items which are not held for discussion. Items that have been held for discussion by the governing board will be enacted upon at the time the item is discussed. So for this evening, What I would like to do is remove all of the agenda items under number 10, Finance. We have a short agenda, and I think all of those deserve a roll call vote. So we will remove agenda items 10A, B, C, D, E, and F. Any questions? Any additional? Yes, there can be. That's the whole agenda. Madam Secretary, go for the vote, please.
Holly Charest,
Yes.
Rob Fisher,
Yes.
Arvell Brown,
Yes.
Andrew Finkbeiner,
Yes.
Brandon Roan,
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris, Amelia Mills,
Yes.
Becky Harlan,
Yes.
Jennifer Schott.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Chairman Finkbeiner, Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. First up, we have letter A, financial statements. Recommended action, the Board of School Directors approve the financial statements, bills, payables list as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Andrew Finkbeiner,
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris, Brandon Roan,
Yes.
Arvell Brown,
Yes.
Becky Harlan,
Yes.
Holly Charest,
Yes.
Rob Fisher,
Yes.
Jennifer Schott,
Yes.
Amelia Mills.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Next up, letter B, transfer points, North Brandywine Middle School and Scott 6th Grade Center. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the creation of the following positions to supervise students. Positions requested for the 2021-2022 school year include 2 positions at North Brandywine Middle School and 3 positions at the Scott 6th Grade Center to supervise Coastal students prior to teacher arrival. The rate will pay at $36 per morning shift. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Mr. Finkbeiner, I pulled this off because I think it's important that Mr. Hanna educate the public as well as the board that these are not additional positions, that we're just moving some supervision around from the campus to elsewhere.
Correct, I appreciate that. So back in September, the board approved a number of positions that would help us supervise at the campus, within this building, within the intermediate high school, at Reeseville, Transfer Point, as well as at South. Those were a total of 20 positions. We no longer need the number of 20 positions, so what we're going to do is reclassify, so they're not new positions. We're reclassifying, repurposing them so that we can have 2 positions at North Brandywine, 3 at Scott, so that we can specifically ensure that as students are coming in earlier, that there is supervision there. And the next two, and I know we're not voting on the next 2, the memorandum of understanding, item C and item D, are actually MOUs with CAD and the Teamsters, so that we can do that because we're looking for teachers as well as folks in the Teamsters area. And they've been very supportive, very helpful as we've done the move to moving the students indoors as well as those who've been outdoors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hanna. And just to confirm the rate at $36 per morning shift, that is the same rate in which we had approved back in September.
That's correct. That's excellent.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Mary Ann Harris,
Yeah.
Becky Harlan,
Yes.
Amelia Mills,
Yes.
Andrew Finkbeiner,
Yes.
Arvell Brown,
Yes.
Jennifer Schott,
Yes.
Holly Charest,
Yes.
Rob Fisher,
Yes.
Brandon Roan.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Letter C, memorandum of understanding CADA. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the memorandum of understanding between the Coastal Area School District and the Coastal Area Teachers Association. This MOU defines payment for extra duty positions located at North Brandywine Middle School and Scott 6th Grade Center. The rate is $36 per morning shift. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Again, Mr. Finkbeiner, I pulled this off for an explanation, and Mr. Hanna explained both C and D in his explanation for B, so thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Brandon Roan,
Yes.
Becky Harlan,
Yes.
Rob Fisher,
Yes.
Andrew Finkbeiner,
Yes.
Jennifer Schott,
Yes.
Arvell Brown,
Yes.
Amelia Mills,
Yes.
Holly Charest,
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Letter D, memorandum of understanding Teamsters. Recommended action, the Board of School Directors approve the memorandum of understanding between the Coast Valley School District and the Teamsters Local Union, number 384. This MOU defines the payment for extra duty positions located at North Brandywine Middle School and Scott 6th Grade Center. The rate is $36 per morning shift. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Amelia Mills,
Yes.
Holly Charest,
Yes.
Becky Harlan,
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris,
Yes.
Jennifer Schott,
Yes.
Rob Fisher,
Yes.
Brandon Roan,
Yes.
Andrew Finkbeiner,
Yes.
Arvell Brown.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Letter E, Human Resources Report. Recommended action, the Board of School Directors approve the resignations, appointments, new positions, leave of absence, transfers, changes of statuses, and corrections as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Amelia Mills,
Yes.
Jennifer Schott,
Yes.
Holly Charest,
Yes.
Rob Fisher,
Yes.
Andrew Finkbeiner,
Yes.
Becky Harlan,
Yes.
Arvell Brown,
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris,
Yes.
Brandon Roan.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Letter F, Human Resources Report Addendum. Recommended action, the Board of School Directors approve the resignations, appointments, new positions, leave of absence, transfers, change of status, and corrections as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Arvell Brown,
Yes.
Andrew Finkbeiner,
Yes.
Amelia Mills,
Yes.
Jennifer Schott,
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris,
Yes.
Brandon Roan,
Yes.
Becky Harlan,
Yes.
Holly Charest,
Yes.
Rob Fisher.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you, Mr. Finkbeiner. Moving on, we have no agenda items for number 11, number 12, or number 13, which takes us to public comment number 14, letter A. The board has requested that all persons making comments of public concern to list their name, address, telephone number, and topic on the sheet provided. There is a 3-minute time limit per person. Lori Shannon Bailey.
Thank you. So I was disappointed that school had to be virtual learning for the older, I guess, 10th or 12th grades. And I certainly support teachers attending Ms. Rossetto's. You know, I was there, it was a beautiful service, and I was happy to be a part of it. But my question is, or my concern is, had we had sufficient substitute teachers, we would not have had to have gone to online learning. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so Andrew, you nailed it when you talked about virtual learning and how it just does not work. And many of you may remember Dr. Dunlap mentioned, I guess sometime during COVID, that when we first came back to school, we lost 15% of students because of problem with online learning. And so please keep that in mind going forward. We've got to certainly have teachers before we can teach, so that's one thing. The other thing is I'm happy to hear that the legislators are coming here in the next few weeks, and happy to hear that they were here already. That's a wonderful thing. Please let them know about our challenges with discipline and trauma-informed education. I mean, I know we want to put our best side forward, and we don't want to talk about, skeletons in the closet, but I will be talking to them about the student adjudications, which really bother me still. We've had 11 so far, but that really bothers me, and I'm sure it bothers you all too, but I think legislators need to know what our challenges are. We don't need to sugarcoat things, we just need to be honest with them about that, about those things. So it's a great thing that they are coming. Finally, please remember that we have already, or you have already approved a budget for our athletic department. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe I think I may have mentioned this earlier, that our budget for athletics is $385,500. And I know that we're fourth in the state for athletics, but we don't want to be, we want to be fourth in the state for academics. You know, that's where it's got to go. So please keep that in mind. And then finally, I'm just going to share this with you. This is a suicide note that I got in September. It's not the same one that I read, but it's from the same person. I want you all to understand how serious the need for trauma-informed care is and mental health support. And I'm happy about the Lincoln Center. I'm happy about, you know, all these programs that you're doing, which, you know, definitely will probably result in our tax increases, but, you know, so be it. So here's what this 16-year-old wrote. I'm sorry I didn't get to say goodbye, but it's either part of me died and I stay here not being the same person, or I go and end all my pain. Students cannot learn when they're exposed to trauma. Thank you very much. Have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Ms. Shannon Bailey. Ms. Shannon Bailey, I can assure you that the board shares your concern with the lack of substitutes, and that our administration is working diligently to every avenue we possibly can to increase the number of substitutes. Are there any additional board members' reports this evening?
Mr. Fisher, I just wanted to ask about transportation. I know that we've received quite a few emails regarding earlier start times, you know, getting rid of the transfer stations, but however, we're starting earlier. Some kids are starting at like 5 and 6. And there's, I guess some of my concerns is that this is the same group of kids on these buses that we're having some issues with, right, at the campus. So I have some concerns with the fact that our bus drivers ready for this, and I don't know how else to say it, because we have some buses that have like 65 kids on them with early start times. And we're asking our families to put our kids out there early in the dark, waking up. A lot of them, if they have to be out there by 5 to 6, they're gonna have to get up a whole hour early. And we wonder why we have some behavior challenges because these kids are exhausted. So I've seen the emails. I don't know if there's anything that we can do about this. I know that I've seen some come from Kraft saying that this is it, this is done. But I'm concerned that January is gonna come and we're gonna have a lot of issues. So I just wanna make sure that everyone is prepared. If there's any wiggle room at all, it's something that, if there is wiggle room, that we could discuss that.
Sure. So we have received a number of emails and calls into the transportation department. I've received some as well. There's some I have to get back to. So we acknowledge that. There are routes. We did this within the constraints of the existing buses that we had allotted, and to be able to do that without adding was certainly helpful. What will happen during the first 2 weeks as we do this work is there will be load management issues that the drivers will look to see how many students are actually on the buses, how many are riding, how many aren't, to give us a better sense of who's actually going to ride. So that's one thing that we know has to happen and happens every year as we engage in this work. I think what I point out is that when we're going to roll January 3rd, or have we waited till the end of the semester, we would have still been with the same types of issues. And so, you know, I know that for many people the transfer points sort of became something that folks got used to, but we also know that it was delaying the beginning of class for many students. And so this was an area that we certainly needed to address. So again, as we roll them, we will be looking at to see what the impact is, to see where the adjustments have to be made, and we'll take it from there. This is really going to be like a new start of the school year with regard to transportation. We're confident that the routes are straight, the routes are right. There have been stops that had to be moved and so forth. We also know that there are families where students were getting on one bus and they were dropping off at the campus and heading into 2 separate directions. In this case, in some cases now, they have to be getting on 2 separate buses. And so we know that that's a fact, that's reality. Where there has been wiggle room, we'll try to make the adjustments where we can. But we've done so within the constraints that were outlined. there's a cost issue to it, right? One of the questions was if we were able to do this, could we do this within the bus constraints that we had, right? We were able to do that. And so from that perspective, so that's one. The second one is I want to be clear that I know that there's 6th graders that are 11 years old and it's a young age. I have a 12-year-old, so I get it. But this is an issue that's 6 through 12 for students who are 6 through 12th grade. And I understand that not all 11 through 12th graders. I totally get that. Right? I just wanted to be sure that you were aware of that, at least with regard to cost.
Mr. Mann, if I could just ask you a quick question. You, I don't belabor the discussion, but those families, I think you kind of alluded to it, but didn't necessarily say directly. Have we taken the initiative to reach out to those families that are on these new revised bus routes to say, hey, do you plan on using this route? Right? So if there's 60 kids on a bus, maybe 20% of those kids end up, saying, hey, we don't need the transportation, and then we can look at further allocation of those buses. Have we done that?
So within the communication that folks got, we typically, when we send them notices, I ask if you're not going to use transportation, let us know. Right, we've done that. Plus, we did a survey earlier in the fall. We probably should have, ideally, we'll be doing that survey toward the end of the year for the following year, saying, are you going to use busing or not, so that we can then make better decisions with regard to routes moving forward. So what our hope is, and what tends to happen historically, is that bus that may have 65 kids may actually end up having 50 or 40 kids, and that may allow us to consolidate something or do something different, provide wiggle room in certain cases. But we need to see what happens in the first couple of weeks. Thank you.
This is stopping. How long does it take to get the kids to school?
It depends. I mean,
I know, but it's really basic, and I really need to know the time frame because we have little children, 6th, 7th grade, whatever. They're not.
Yeah.
I need to know how long these kids will be standing outside, because no, the parents can't stand outside with them for that long period of time and early in the morning, because they probably got other children in the house that they need to tend to and stuff. But why do they have to get on the bus so early? That's all I want to know. And how long it takes them to get to point A to point B. If the purpose was to save them money, well, the kids' safety and everything else is more important to me than that. And not being smart or rude. I'm not talking about the collegiate kids and the snack other kids. I'm talking about our kids. And not that I'm not concerned about them, because, this is too much. It's too much. It's too much. You say we want to do it for it, make it better, and dollars and cents, and it's not right.
Well, to the question in terms of how long will they be outside, we do ask parents to be there 10 minutes before the bus is to arrive. Now, I understand what will happen in many cases, 10 minutes before, and if the bus is running 10 minutes late, that's 20 minutes before that they've been waiting there. So I'm very cognizant of that. And so from that perspective, again, we'll have to see how it plays. I get that it's earlier. I understand that we were given a charge, and which we agreed to do. And we just want to see, as the first couple of weeks roll, how that plays out. The goal is to make sure students get to school on time. Right? That is the goal. And heretofore, I will tell you, I've been in this campus since the 23rd of August, and I've seen buses leave here at 7:45 to a class that should be started at 7:30. Right? And then what that does, Ms. Harris, what that does is it delays all the rest of them because
Maybe you shouldn't have done it in the first place.
Okay.
Because it's not changing anything. The kids are still having a very long day. And even if they were whatever grade or whatever school, they're still having a very long day. And this was supposed to fix it, and it's not fixing it. It's making it worse. But for the benefit of the doubt, I'll wait built it and see how it rolls out. And if it don't roll out any better than what it was before, then it was a waste of time and money.
Thank you, Ms. Harris.
Any additional board member reports or informational items this evening?
Mr. Fisher, I'm sorry, I was having problems getting my microphone on. I just wanted to just pose one more question to Mr. Hanna, and then we'll move on. Mr. Hanna, did crafts indicate that they're still experiencing a driver shortage?
There's still, so I'm glad you raised that. We communicated that in the letter. This shift does not mean that the driver shortage has been alleviated. So there's still issues there. And what Crafts does is attempts to, do it in the morning when they find out. We'll send a communication out to folks. Number one. Number two, you may have buses that do double runs to make sure that students are picked up. So thank you for raising that. This does not mean that the driver shortage has been alleviated.
Okay. And is there like if they experience like drivers calling out due to illness and so forth, do they have like some kind of like a plan B? Okay, we have X number of drivers out, so here we got to implement plan B. Do they have something like that to be proactive?
They do. What they'll do is they may do double runs, number one. Number two, an announcement goes out saying which routes specifically are problematic. So in some cases, parents may have to take kids and understanding that the bus is going to run late. Number two. Number three, they will pull everyone from within the office that has a CDL to drive. So if it's their HR person at Craft, it's whomever, will drive.
Okay. Yeah, that was just one of the things I remember parents with concerns about is, that they would wait a long time and the bus would never come. And here we found out that, there's X number of drivers out today, so we're having trouble getting buses. So if they have something to be proactive to a situation like that rather than reactive, yeah, that would be ideal. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harris.
Anyone else?
I'm going to add on to that. We are communicating to parents, correct, when we know buses are, there's an alert that goes out.
There's an alert that goes out saying and the alert will say it's running late. We know it'll run late. There have been times when we've said this bus isn't running at all, right? Early. And that's happened very, very infrequently, but I'll be honest, that's happened as well. The other thing that might happen is that alert may go out at 6 a.m., 6:15, but the driver may call out at 6:30, right? And so that you have that going on as well. Craft is suffering as well as all of us are with having to quarantine its drivers as well. And so in some cases, to the point of because of illness, they may not be able to drive. And so it's not that different from what we're seeing in our schools and around with the labor force.
So
the answer is yes.
So because we're using computer systems for all of this, it's very important for parents to have the correct contact information.
Yes.
Because if we don't have the correct contact information, they will not get the alerts. So, thank you.
Right, thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion for adjournment. We will adjourn at 9:05.